So it's not so much about LGD, but just about how to approach a migrations project and the different steps that you should go through along the way. So the first slide is, it's quite high level, which sort of outlines the steps at, well, yeah, at a high level, I suppose. So the first thing is to do is site analysis and understand what content you have on your site. You know, whether it's good content, bad content, whether it needs to be rewritten, whether you're going to migrate it as is, whether you're just going to bin it all and start again. You know, that's the first step, is to figure out where you are. Then for anything that you are going to migrate, you move on to the second step, and that's where you define the mappings from the legacy structures into the new structures. And I'll show you an example of how we do that in a later slide. Then usually when you've defined the mappings, and you know how news content on the legacy site is going to be migrated to the new site, you have to decide, well, do I have enough content? Do I need to automate this, or is it a manual copy and paste? And that does come down an awful lot to just the volume. So if you only have 10 news articles, it's going to be much quicker for you to copy and paste those over than if you have 1,000 of them. Now, news might be a bad example because you're always going to have lots of news, but if there is some other sort of content where you only had a limited number of pages, then that's where a manual process would be better. Usually, and always in these things, you're not going to get it right first time. So define a batch, you know, test the content, control set of content that you're going to test with that covers all scenarios. Test, review, automate, fix your automation, and go again, and keep going until all your tests pass. Once that's done, you can move on to the manual tests. And again, you've got that cycle of testing, repeating until all your tests pass, and then going ahead and getting sign off. So to just go through these in a bit more detail. And I've probably covered all of this already in what I just said, but this makes sure I haven't forgotten any points. First, conduct a site analysis, understand all your legacy data structures, what should be, shouldn't be migrated, identify anything that needs a rewrite, and yeah, identify what can be automated and manual if possible, and identify all functionality and integrations as well, because a migration isn't just about moving content from site A to site B. It's also about replication functionalities, such as, you know, a contact form or a service listing, or, you know, those sort of things need to be migrated as well. Migrated might be the wrong word, rebuilt as well. In the mappings, it might be easier to just skip on to the next slide, where I have a spreadsheet, or a sample spreadsheet that we did for another council.
Sorry, Stella, we're still seeing the first slide on screen.
Are you?
Yeah. Oh, I am. Can't speak for everyone. I'm still seeing the migration PowerPoint, not in presentation mode or anything, just
Okay, let me stop and share again. I'll just share desktop. This?
Yeah, now I can see the slide proper. Yeah.
Okay, not sure what happened there. I just did the same thing again, but anyway.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm quickly moving on from this slide though, because I'm on the clock. So on the second step, you identify, you get really granular in mapping. You identify everything that has to be mapped at a high level. So news content type is going to go to the new news article content type, and, you know, the service, you define what they're doing from the old naming to the new naming, and where they live. And then you get right down into the individual fields in each. So this is actually a very small automated migration we did for a council in Ireland, and they had different content types, which you can see in column A there: beaches, civic amenities, councillors, and so on. We just decided what was to be migrated, and then we kept track of the status. We also counted the number of articles for each. So civic amenities, I think we did a manual migration in the end, because there's only 11 of them. And then, of which were unpublished. This was just to give us an overview and help inform our decision as to whether to automate it or manually migrate it. If we then look at the news content type, We then had a tab for each content type and also each taxonomy. You replicate this for taxonomies, for content types, users, every sort of entity that you might be migrating. This is just the news one that they had. So we listed every single field, what the field name was, what type of data it held. In case of a term reference, we also then said, well, it goes to this taxonomy, whether it's required, number of values could contain, any notes, whether that individual field was to be migrated or not, then whether it's done or not, and then what it maps to. So over on the right hand side, and it gets a bit cut off, it's it's the title is going to the title in the new field, but in the new site, but the body is actually going into paragraphs on this site, and it's going into a building block or paragraph text. And you can see that the news image is going to the teaser image field. So you go through all of that mapping, and then you give this spreadsheet to your developer, and they take it away and they can automate this in Drupal. The migrate module in Drupal, which is in Drupal core, I really highly recommend it. It's definitely what you need to use, whether you're migrating from a legacy Drupal system or whether you're migrating from something like WordPress or another CMS platform. Use the migrate module. So yeah, basically you automate it, you test, rinse and repeat until you get it all working. Make sure that your control batch of content covers all types of data that needs to be migrated, but also all the combinations of data. So say, for example, you have news articles where the hero image is optional. Well, then you need to make sure that your control content covers image, instances where there is no image and instances where there are images. Also, watch out for dates. Dates can be in nasty different formats, day, month, year, month, day, year, and they can always screw up your migration. And also watch out for any embedded images and even embedded links in content. You might need to put in redirects and migrate redirects, might need to migrate meta tags. So there's a lot more when you start drilling down into it than just one page. Each page of content could have one or more images, one or more attachments, taxonomies, the user who wrote it, redirects, URL aliases, I don't know what else. It goes on. But essentially, test, rinse, and repeat. There's usually something that can't be done also, by an automated fashion. Either it's just not worth the investment of time and money into generating an automated task for it, and it's just going to be quicker to do it manually, or it's just going to require humans to come along and review it and go, right, all these embedded images, I need to reposition them in the new design of the new site. So as you're going through it, document all those manual tasks that need to be done at the end after the automated migration, and then just keep going through them, testing, repeating until you're happy that it's all good to go. And then you hand it over to the business to sign off. Sorry, half a minute. Last slide. Just the final point. Just make sure I've focused there on migrating content from A to B. But also don't forget that you might need to do redesigns, asset production, content rewriting, integration with external systems. That's all part of the project as well. And that's me.